situations,
bits of
dialogue, yep,
dialogue, meta, metaphors,
metaphors,
actions, the works. These repeated parts are the author's way of saying reader means something. This matters.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so we're looking at it. We're really focused on repetition. If the author's repeating something throughout the story, it's something that really matters, right? And the author is intentionally doing that on purpose. They're not just repeating it on accident, right? Like sometimes when we write things, because we're not expert authors, we may repeat an idea or something more than once, and it's not really something we're doing on purpose. We're just repeating it because we've said it more than once. But professional authors, books that you read by real authors, if they're repeating something, it's probably on purpose, and they're probably doing it for a reason, right? We're going to focus a little bit more on that today and why they might be doing that. So our goal today, Derek, can you read our goal, please?
To understand that we must investigate things the author repeats and find the meaning.
Thank you, sir. So we have to, it's our job as a reader to pay attention and really focus on what are they repeating and why do I think they're doing that? What's the meaning behind that, right? So for an example would be, why do you think Kate DiCamillo, who that's the person who wrote The Tiger Rising, the author, decided to make things recur and repeat it over and over in her story? Like what bigger meaning could those repeating of things have? All right, so one time isn't enough. We have to focus on that, right? When there's something that we really want someone else to know, we don't just say it one time. Think about when you have an important question and the teacher doesn't answer it. You probably ask that question more than one time. Or if you really want your parents to get you something or do something for you, you probably say it more than one time, right? So authors are the same way, right? If it's an idea that they think is important, they're going to bring it up a lot, more than one, every chance they get throughout the story. They may not just come right out and say what it means or why it's important, but they're going to use it over and over again to kind of hint it, and they're going to let the reader try to figure that out. All right, so we're going to try to think of a recurring list. So we're going to kind of make a list of things that repeat themselves or recur in The Tiger Rising. So raise your hand if you have something you would like to share that you think is something that recurs over and over in The Tiger Rising. What's something that is repeated a lot in The Tiger Rising? We'll go Ania, Cynthia, Jay, and then Michael. I see all those hands. Ania, you can go first.
When Sistine says, my dad's gonna pick me up.
Okay, so Sistine. Dad picking her up is repeated a lot. All right, Cynthia.
Rob's leg.
Rob's legs, specifically the Rob's itchy legs, right? Jay.
The Kentucky star sign.
Michael, go ahead. These are all good, guys.
I don't think his John has said good morning. Mom.
Who else? Liam, have you said good morning?
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Because there's a lot more. Corbin.
Sistine, Dad.
We have that on.
Rob's dad.
What about Rob's dad?
No, his suitcase.
Rob's suitcase. That's a good one. Guadalupe, go ahead.
The tiger free.
The tiger, right? That's one. All right. Anything else we want to add to that list? Going once? Any other hands that want to go up? Going twice? All right. So, Ania, go ahead. We can add one more from you. And Asil, we'll go to you after Ania. Go ahead, Ania.
Caroline.
That's Rob's mother, right? So I'll put Caroline over here in parentheses. Yeah, they start to repeat her name more too. Asil, go ahead.
What about Sistine's rudeness? I mean, she never really stops being rude until the end.
So that's not something that the author necessarily comes out and says. That's an interesting observation. You notice, right? She kind of acts that way throughout the story. That's not something that the author repeats. I get what you're saying, and that's a really good observation. That'd be great when we're talking about analyzing characters, right? That'd be if I said describe Sistine, that would be something that would be important for you to talk about. But that's not something that the author necessarily comes out and talks about that specifically. Here is a list, and one more time before we go on, I'm going to make sure there's nobody else who wants to share anything. All right. So here's a list of what Kate DiCamillo has actually said she repeated on purpose for meaning. So let's see which ones we got on our list. Maybe. There we go. So Sistine's pink frilly dress, Rob's wood carvings, Willie Mae's words, you got to let the sadness rise up, imaginary suitcase, we said that, animals, the tiger and the birds, we said that, the caged tiger, Rob's rash, and the Kentucky star sign. So we came up with some of those. It's pretty good, right? So the next step is trying to think about, all right, now that we've listed these things that kind of, or noticed the things that the author kind of repeats, why might they be important to the idea and why might they fit into the story? So we're going to practice with one. I'm going to do one myself. It's kind of a model of writing a statement about why I think it's important. And then we're going to do a couple together. So the first one I want to think about is Rob's wood carvings, right? And so Rob's wood carvings are important. They come up a lot throughout the story. So I'm going to start my statement and I'm going to say, Rob's wood carvings are brought up several times throughout the story. And I'm going to say, so I want to think about why those are important. Why do I think Rob's wood carvings are important? One thing I noticed is Jay, do you want to share why you think they're important?
It's because whenever time that he's sad or frustrated, he carves wood.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. So one of the things that one of the reasons they're important is the carvings are a way for Rob to calm his feelings when he feels sad or anxious. And I think that's important because it's kind of his way, although he never talks about his feelings and he keeps them locked in a suitcase. That's kind of his way for letting some feelings out, right? It's kind of his own way for maybe he doesn't talk about it, but he does that and it makes him feel better. Ania, do you want to add something to that?
And like when he's thinking about something, like if he's thinking about a bird, he'll make whatever he's thinking about.
Yeah, so Rob usually, that was a bad U, carves things that he thinks and cares about. Now, here's where I'm going to have to relate that to a kind of a lesson or a life issue that I think Kate DiCamillo wants to connect that to, right? So that's the kind of tough part that I'm going to wrap up at the end. I'm going to say, I think this, oh, that was a bad key. I don't know what happened. I'm going to fix that. Maybe. Well, my computer's in. Dear Lord. Okay. should have used the eraser. This is the author's way of telling us it is good to find hobbies that help relieve our stress. All right, so that would be my version of that. I think that those wood carvings are really important. Jay's spot on, right? That's the first thing I think of is when he starts to get emotional or kind of worked up, he goes and he carves the wood and makes him feel a lot better. And so even though he doesn't open his suitcase, that wood is a way for him to calm himself down. We probably could have also added in there that that's something his mom taught him to do. And so it also helps him think about his mom and happy memories with his mom. I could have probably added that in too, but I think that answer we have right there is fine. So let's look at another one. That's another idea that was on her list, and that's Rob's imaginary suitcase. All right, so how could we start our statement? And we're going to write this one down together in our notebook. So I want you to open up your notebook, and we're going to write down a statement as practice about talking about why a repetition or something that's repeated is important and what the author's lesson is for us from the story. So does anybody have a way we could kind of start this? Remember, I'll go back to mine. My first one, my computer's been so slow today, guys. I'm sorry. I put Rob's wood carvings are brought up several times throughout the story. So what's something we could say? How could we start Rob's suitcase or start the sentences about Rob's imaginary suitcase? Corbin, is your hand up? No? Okay. Anybody? I'm going to call on somebody random here. CJ, how can we start this one? CJ, how can we start this one?
You can put all of his emotions, like his mom, that was one in his imaginary suitcase.
Okay, so that's we could talk about how his emotions are in there, but what I'm saying is if I just want to start my thing to talk about how, like, start a statement. So my first one, again, I'll go back, says, Rob's wood carvings are brought up several times throughout the story. Thank you, Asil. What can we do to start our statement?
Well, the imaginary suitcase is technically his feelings. He locks them inside, so he doesn't really talk about his mom.
Okay, so I think we're misunderstanding. Hang on, we'll come back to that. I'm going to give Ania one more try at this, and then we may just have to move on where I talk about how I want it started. Ania, go ahead.
Rob's imaginary suitcase is brought up in the story several times because.
All right, thank you. Rob's imaginary suitcase. I'm not going to start it the same exact way as the last one, but that's fine if you want to do it like that. Is mentioned many times throughout the story. All right, now we can add in what Asil and CJ were saying, right? We can say that his suitcase is a made up space for Rob to hide his emotions, thoughts, and feelings. All right, is there anything else we would like to add about his emotional suitcase? Michael, go ahead.
He wants to keep it in his suitcase locked up because he don't want to just shout it out at other people.
Like, Rob locks things in his suitcase to avoid having to think about things that upset him. What happens with his suitcase at the end of the story? A seal.
He opens it up.
Yeah, and does it go well? No, right? At the end of the story, he lets it all out at once. And says hateful things to his dad, right? So now that we have that down about the suitcase, what can we connect to that idea that is a lesson Kate DiCamillo may be wanting us to learn from Rob, a life issue that she may want us to think about, or a theme that she may want us to understand based on what Rob did at the end of that story? What message is the author trying to tell us? Alex J., what do you think?
Probably don't hit your dad or something.
Well, maybe, but we're thinking about, is that connected? That's only how, when he blows up at the end. Is that connected to him locking in those emotions the whole story? So think about it, he's locked in all those emotions the whole story, and then he lets them kind of out all at once, and he kind of gets really angry at his dad. So does anybody, besides somebody I've heard from already, Cynthia, what do you think? What do you think the author wants us to learn from Rob in his suitcase?
Don't lock your feelings.
Yeah, don't keep your feelings to yourself, right? Don't keep your emotions bottled up inside. So I'm going to say, I think the author wants us to understand that we shouldn't keep our feelings locked inside, right? We need to share those feelings. We need to express ourselves, because when we don't, we blow up like Rob did at his dad, and we lose it all at one time, right? It's important to talk about our feelings and share our emotions. That's what she wants us to learn from Rob and keeping his suitcase shut, all right? So I'm going to give you about 3 more minutes to write that down in your notebook so you have an example, because your job will be to do this with your own book today, okay? So I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to just get that written down, and then we'll talk about your assignment, and then I'll give you a few more minutes to finish if you haven't gotten it done yet, okay? So I'll give you about 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and chat about your assignment. Then I'll give you some more time.
Remember? First, there are Peeves, and they are a squire. Can you say that? Squire, and then they can. Good. So yesterday we talked more about.
2 more minutes. You got 1 more minute. Alejandro, you have a question?
Yeah, what does that word say?
I have no idea which word you mean. There's a lot on that screen.
That one where it says, what starts with a,
Which word? I don't know which word. Which line is it in?
almost like in the last line, but like,
Locked? Shouldn't keep our feelings locked inside. Is it that one?
yes.
All right. At this time, I would like you to please hold up your notebooks and show us what you have written down, please, and thank you. So if your camera's off, I'm not going to, and you're not holding yours up, you're not going to get the points for writing it down.
I'm not finished.
That's okay. I know you might not be done. I just want to see that you have been writing while you were given time to write. So hold your up. When I say your name, you can put it down. Alejandro, I got it. Thank you. Ania, thank you. Jay, thank you. Michael, thank you. Guadalupe, thank you. Alex, thank you. Corbin, thank you. Denise, thank you. Cynthia, thank you. All right, CJ, got it. Thanks. Jonathan, I got it. Thank you. Y'all, this is easy points. Easy points to boost your grade right here before the end of the grading period. All right, so your assignment today, and I will put that back up if you did not finish writing it down before we go to small group, and you can finish writing it. What is happening? This is gotten, there we go. Okay. Do that. My computer is being so slow. All right, your assignment today is to do what we just did with your own book. So if you're reading Frindle or The Bicycle Spy or another book, you're going to make a list of what items or what objects your author has been repeating in your story. All right. I know my groups are going to read one chapter, and then we're going to try to start this together. If you're in the Frindle group, you could try to go ahead and get this done and submit it beforehand, but that's just me. You can make a list of things that you see repeated, and then you're going to do what we just did. You're going to write a statement about one of those things. You're going to choose one. All right. So you don't have to do about more than one. You're going to choose one thing. You're going to talk about what is repeated, why it's important in the story, and what you think the author wants you to learn from that idea. Okay. So you're going to find those things that are repeated. We'll make a list and then work it out. Okay. Thank you to those of you who did Lexia yesterday. Okay. Really appreciate you guys doing that. A lot of you guys got points just for getting some Lexia lessons done. Same thing with Dreambox. Really quickly getting to the assignment. Super simple today. You go to Tuesday, go to reading, and it's right here, lesson 18 assignment. And it's got your job listed right there. And there's some examples down at the bottom. Okay. I'm going to go back to the last page. If you are still working on writing it down, you have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to finish. There we go. 3 minutes to finish writing that down in your notes as an example. Once you finish writing, just say, I'm done, and that you're leaving. If you're in my group, you're just going to stay on. All right. You got 3 minutes.